here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did it stop on your end?
No. All right. So we're
Okay.
coming back to the question of why is it important to realize you need to keep all the information about your loved one in one place?
You should use the word records.
For your records. Okay. Why is it important to keep your records in one place?
Okay. And before, let me do one more check because I'm getting a little green out on my monitor screen. Ernie, is this looking good quality wise?
It really looks good here.
Yes, it looks good.
Really went right back.
All right.
The only thing is that when I asked you to tilt your camera down, it went right back.
Oh,
Where it was in the beginning. But I think it has to do with the way you're sitting.
Probably.
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. I just didn't want you to cut off my head.
All right, so I'll say it again. So tell us, why is it important to keep the records for your loved one all in one place?
One of the things I learned with my father-in-law's journey is it's important to keep the records for your loved one and all in one place. And one of the methods to do that is really old school. And that would be to get a file folder and start putting every piece of paper you receive into that file folder. And on the top of that file folder, what we did for my father-in-law is we kept a documentation log, date and time of the doctor and the healthcare team, their visits. And we would also write down any questions that we had that needed answers. And that would be questions from anybody that's involved in the inner circle. And when I say the inner circle for my father-in-law, it was me, my wife, his daughter, her sister, and my brother-in-law, and my mother-in-law. So, I mean, there were 5 people that really had this vested interest. And what we would do is the other 3 had full-time 9-to-5 jobs. I had a flexible schedule. I always was there on first rounds, somewhere between 10:30 and noon in the morning. I was there. I was reviewing the information. I was reviewing the night. I was reviewing any new meds. And I'm not a doctor, but I am curious about what they were giving to him at that point. Because when it came time to go to a rehab hospital, we found there was sometimes a 24 to 48 hour lag between the time the hospital would send over the information and be received on the other end. I felt it was our job as the team to take the information with us and provide that to the new care team in case they hadn't received what they needed to move forward with a care plan.
Excellent, excellent. Tell us, how often should loved ones communicate with the team?
So one other item that people that are helping their family member go through this journey is they are recording daily. There is one person responsible for the folder that will compile the information and share that. So, for example, in my father-in-law's journey, my job after I left was I handed that folder to my mother-in-law and I said, whatever happens between now and the time one of the daughters gets there, you write it down in this folder, you time and date. If the specialist stops by, write it down. If the doctor comes back by, write it down. If they start a new medicine, write it down so that whoever walks in at that 4 o'clock hour can pick up the folder and know what's happened in that 4 hours that I couldn't be there. So that's important. The other piece of that is not just the old school folder piece of it. It is having the logins and the passwords to any of the systems that the hospital or care facility is using to keep track that a patient has access to. That's also important.
That's excellent. So I was trying to read my scribbling notes here from what you had said earlier, but what are some other really crucial, you mentioned about the password, which is really important. I'm wondering if you might want to say that also in a shortened phrase. let's just say, what are other critical things that people need to know about keeping track of your loved one's online security?
Okay. So while you're in the hospital, it's also important to monitor anything that's going in and out back at home. And here's what I mean by that. Somebody needs to be picking up the mail. Mail being left in a mailbox is an invitation for a thief to steal and cause other identity theft issues. It's important to monitor credit card statements, and it's important to monitor bank statements. There are people and there are stories of not so ethical employees of facilities that would take personal information of a patient and then use that to commit some sort of fraud. So I would say not only are you becoming the documentation police for the journey, you're also helping monitor what's going on back home. And people sometimes are so focused on the issue at hand that they forget to double check that. They forget what's happening, especially if in my case, home was 184 miles away from where I'm located.
That's very good. Could you also say that in another shortened version for us? Why is it, tell us the important, you said so many good things. I'd like to have some pausing in between. What are some
Sure.
important tips to know about online and offline security for your loved one who's in a hospital?
When your loved one is in a hospital, remember to make sure. Let me start over.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That was an internal timer I forgot to turn off. Okay, 3, 2. When your loved one is in a hospital, please remember to have somebody be checking back at home, especially if you're separated by distance, for don't let the mail stack up, review credit card bills, review bank statements, make sure that no one has gotten access to those pieces of information.
Excellent, good. How important is it for family members to know each other's passwords?
Okay. And my mind's going about 5 different ways here. So specifically, Lynn, the question is passwords related to the situation at
To
hand, correct?
accessing, so let's say you have a loved one in the hospital and no, and you, like, it was when we
Oh,
had
okay.
our
I'm tracking
conversation.
with you now.
I don't
I'm
know my
tracking.
husband's passwords to his email to getting access, and maybe
Okay.
there's something.
All right. Okay. So, okay. 3, 2. One other thing is that when a loved one goes into the hospital, you need to make sure that you have access to the systems they have access to. If a husband and wife share a password to a banking site or a credit card site or a bill pay site, that is fine. However, that information still needs to be confirmed, because if somebody's off doing their own thing and they're prompted to do a password reset and they do it and they forgot to tell the other person or write it down. You're not supposed to write down passwords, but admit it, we all write them down somewhere, right? They're stored somewhere. So when make sure that you have access to those important, not only to the hospital patient files where you're allowed to have that patient access, make sure that you have the passwords and logins for any of the systems or the financials that the family would need access to during the journey.
That's great. Can you say just a short one now? Make sure you have access to the passwords that
Yeah.
are
Okay.
relevant.
All right. 3, 2. One of the most things you can do when a loved one goes into the hospital
Wait,
is
you
to
said
make
one of
sure that
them.
someone,
You said one of the most things. Most important. I think you
one
left
of the
out a
most
word.
important.
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2. One of the most important things you can do when a loved one enters the hospital is to make sure that someone has access to the logins and passwords that they will need to conduct personal business, such as credit card companies, banking statements, utility payments.
Great, great. Um, you had mentioned earlier about possession and something of all documents. I couldn't read my handwriting. Your third and fourth tip, discover. I don't know if you, seems like you covered a
I
lot.
think it was, I think it was Lynn that that folder remains in possession of one person as they
Okay,
transfer facility.
that's a good point.
You know what, what you have to do is kind of go back to your list where you started out with, there should be a point person.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
One person.
Use that
Person, one
term
person to
when
take
you talk
point.
about what you're about to talk about. Make sure that.
I'm sorry, you cut out on the last part of that.
So how important is it
Go
to
ahead.
have one point person be responsible for a loved one, especially when they're moving from one place to another?
It is of utmost importance that one person take responsibility and be the point of contact and be the voice for the family. Now, obviously that would be the spouse. In my instance, my mother-in-law is very reserved, doesn't want to bother anybody, doesn't want to to cause any problems. And me, on the other hand, I'm not afraid to ask questions. And you need somebody that's not afraid to ask tough questions and get clarification as you go through this journey and you're advocating for your loved one.
Excellent. Tell us what you did to speak up for your father-in-law in the hospital.
One of the most important roles that I played as the son-in-law, I always called myself the favorite son-in-law, by the way. However, one of the most important things that I did was to ask tough questions. If I didn't understand, or my mother-in-law didn't understand what had happened or transpired before I arrived, I went and found the doctor. I went and found that nurse, and I said, help me understand this course of treatment. Help me understand when therapy is going to happen, at what time. I got clarification, and then I documented it appropriately within the file.
Excellent. Did you feel that your ability to speak up made a difference and to your family, and what can others learn from that?
When you take this role on as the one who is speaking and is willing to ask the hard questions, you are providing a level of comfort and care to your family and to the one that is being cared for. If you do not ask the question and it becomes unanswered, or it becomes important later, it can create delays in treatment. It can negatively impact the path that that loved one is taking as we strive to provide the best care for them.
Can I break in here?
Sure.
Could you talk about,
Yeah.
I think that one of the most important things of what we're discussing today is the point person. And I think probably that the medical team probably appreciates that there's a point person too. And you probably get more out of it in the fact that you're going to do better with that. Could you speak to that? Because then they know who to talk to, you know who to talk to.
Good point.
Right. Okay. So 3, 2, your ability to be that point person, to be that initial point of contact or primary point of contact, is so important to your family. It's also important to the team that is serving you, because they know if they have a question, they can come to you and ask, and that you know who to contact within the family to get the answer that they need. There were times in the journey that the information that was being shared on that 10:30 a.m. round was important enough that I picked up my cell phone, I dialed my wife, my sister-in-law, and I hit the conference button, because what the doctor was telling me was more important for the girls to hear than it was for me to hear, because decisions had to be made. That is the level of intensity, if that's a good word, of determination that you need when you are becoming the advocate for your loved one.
That was,
That just occurred to me, that was really good, but
that
it
was
just
a great point you made.
is that we haven't been oriented here yet to the situation that your father is in. He couldn't do it. Your father-in-law couldn't, evidently was not capable. So I think we probably should need about a sentence about that.
He was Ernie, except let me say it this way about my father-in-law.
Sure.
A willful, stubborn man, and he wanted to go way before the family was ready to let him go, because of the quality of life and what he was fighting. He fought for us for 6 months, and we had 6 good months, well, good and bad. We had 6 months with him to say goodbye. We had 6 months to say what we needed to say. And that was the blessing part of it. So yes, he would answer yes, no questions. He would answer, pain level questions. He was not as aggressive as I or my wife, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law was at that point. And and my mother-in-law too was not, again, she just didn't want to bother anybody, because, she didn't want to look stupid either. So
Could you back up and give people a little bit more orientation here? What we didn't really fully understand, maybe Lynn did, but I didn't until this minute, is that he was dying. And that you were in the hospital with your father-in-law dying, and you had 4 other people involved in this. And somehow you kind of have to, in a sentence or two, give us that picture.
That's a good point. If you could summarize the scene and what you recommend people do with something like that, that's good.
Right. Okay. All right. 3, 2. So to set the scene, my father-in-law had many health problems from his late 20s up until the time he passed. So when he went into the hospital on January 27th, it was the expectation that he probably wouldn't get out. And what we found through our medical teams and through the people that helped us through this journey is we were buying time, and we were actually able to buy 6 months with him through different facilities, different hospitals, different care teams. By us being there to manage the process and ask the questions regarding his care, we probably bought him an extra 5 months. I don't think that without us pressing for treatment, for protocols, for medicines, for trying this and trying that, that he would have lasted more than about 30 days.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That was good. So would you want to, because we've gotten good information, I'm wondering if you want to just in a shortened form highlight, these are important tips that people need to know about keeping a loved one safe in regards to their security. Some of the top things that you've already said, if you could just recap them in a short, what would be the most important thing or things that you'd recommend people know before bringing a loved one in a hospital?
Okay, perfect.
Let's just recap it, in a short way.
Okay. So just quickly, let's review the things that you need to do as you are either in the middle of the situation or you're getting ready to go into this situation where you're putting a loved one into the hospital. It could be for a routine surgery. It could be for some sort of extended treatment, whatever the situation you're facing. Again, number one, assign somebody to take responsibility for collecting information and documenting everything. Number two, make that person the point of contact, not only for the family, but also for the medical team that is assisting you. Number three, remember to also be aware and track not only the things that are happening in the hospital and access and logins and passwords to hospital systems, if that's available to you. Also remember to keep an eye on the personal side. Make sure you're keeping track of bank statements, credit card statements. Make sure that someone is taking point and has responsibility for logins and passwords for those systems, just in case the loved one is the only one that has the access or remembers the password at the time. That piece is important. And remember to write all questions down, because the question that you don't ask can cause a delay in care on the back end or when it's needed at the most critical time.
Excellent. I think that was great.
Good.
That was really good.
Yeah.
I think we've got everything. Ernie, is there anything, or, you tell me, Dan, is there anything more that you want to say? Or Ernie, do you have any other questions?
In case I would like it to ask that question, yeah, does Dan have anything else to say? But there is one thing I'd like to say.
Do you have anything else? You want to say?
Right now, if you're in a hospital, every place I have been, any visiting or been there myself, it goes into a computer. Everything's in a computer. How do you make sure that you know what's in that computer, and that if it is a case where they're transferred to even another floor, you can lose it. How do you do that in this day and age?
Okay, great question.
Good point.
Okay, 3, 2. Remember that everything that the hospital is doing is probably going into their computer, their data system. It is never inappropriate to ask to see that patient information. That is important. Make sure that loved one that is going in for treatment, as when they're conscious and in their right mind, remember to have them sign the release. So we had a release signed for the 5 of us, correct? My mother-in-law, me, my wife, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law. We all had access and permission to see my father-in-law's information. Remember to get that done before any treatment gets happen. Now, the transfer of information in between floors, in between hospitals, find out what hard copy printout that you can have them print the report so you can take it with you, or that you have access to their system. Very important as you provide the best level of care and advocate for your loved one.
Can you ask for a printout? Let's say you were switching hospitals, or say you just want to take it home. How can you? That's got to be pretty voluminous. I mean, could that be pages and pages and pages?
It can be. Sometimes they're just going to say, sometimes they're just going to say, Ernie, no, we can't do that. Here's your login and password. And then what we ended up doing was saving a lot of things to PDF. So on a computer.
So it's not it's not perfect system.
So I think we've got everything. Do you feel that way, Ernie? Are you?
Yeah,
okay?
There's a lot there. I'm trying to figure out how to edit.
Thank you, Dan. You're okay
with
that?
He's already trying to storyboard and edit it. Yeah, Ernie's already trying to storyboard and edit it and figuring out where he's going to do inserts.
I'm going to stop the recording for now. Dan, thank you. You gave us so many different aspects of patient safety that we really hadn't thought about before. And in fact, the part about passwords, I hadn't really thought about that before.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I actually had that. I was in Switzerland in a hospital, and I wanted them to see my records at home. And I had to do, because I didn't have it with my passwords with me. I have this kind of a pattern of passwords. I wrote like 3 or 4 down. I said, okay, it's got to be one of these. With these, and then I went on my own phone and at great distance and expense, figured out how to work before I could give it to them and say, okay, here, if you use these passwords, you can find out my entire record. They were very impressed.
Thank you. All right, so you've given us a
That's
lot of
great.
time, Dan. I really appreciate it. So when this is all done, I will be sure to give you a copy, and you'll have a credit in this. I didn't send you, which I forgot, the release form, which I could send you to say that you give permission for us to use your
Yeah.
image and your
Just
words.
bring it.
I
Yeah.
can send that to you.
Yeah.
So-
Just bring it. Just send it